Sifu is now available on GeForce NOW, and I'm here to give you a first look at the game running on the 3080 tier along with my first impressions. Everything in the settings is cranked up to ultra and the game runs perfectly smooth. Let me begin by saying Sifu is either going to be a game you absolutely love or absolutely hate. There's really no middle ground. If you're wondering why that is, well, that's because of the difficulty the game sets. There is absolutely no option of turning it down or making it easier. It's sheer trial by fire. You're either gonna get better at the mechanics of the game, or you're gonna be hard stuck no matter what you do. The game itself is very precise, and you need to be on point with your parry or dodges, or you're gonna find yourself dying a lot. And when you die in Sifu, your character ages up. With that comes some benefits, but mostly negatives. And I'll have more to say about that mechanic later in the video, but for now I want to focus on the gameplay itself because I do think it's a testament to just how good GeForce NOW's latency is. As I mentioned, timing is very precise in this game, and being delayed in any sort of input would really make this game impossible to play. I'm more than happy to report that there was no readjustment period switching from my local PC running the game to playing it on GeForce NOW. But outside of that, the best way I can describe how the gameplay feels is a really interesting mix of the Batman Arkham series with the Souls franchise. And I have to admit, it's an absolutely fantastic mix because it feels super satisfying to put the beat down on your enemies, but also the achievement you get when you beat a boss or just the big enemy that you've been struggling with is all there. And now that you have an idea of what the game might feel like, I do want to explain the mechanics before going further. Sifu is kind of like a roguelike, but also not really. And to explain that further, I need to explain the aging mechanic. When you die in Sifu, you age up, and then you have a death counter that counts upward. The next time you die in the game, you're gonna be aging by whatever your death counter's at. You can age all the way up to 70, but once you hit that peak age, the next death is permanent. And at that point, you'll have to start the level again from whatever age you entered the level on. And the only way to enter that level at a younger age is by going to the previous level and then beating it at a younger age. And when it comes to the aging mechanic, you'll notice that every 10 years there's a notable increase in power, but a decrease in maximum health. It's a very unique idea, and it definitely gives you a sense of tension when you get close to dying. It is worth pointing out that there are moves you can add to your arsenal, and this does provide a sense of progression. You can even make them permanent unlocks by buying them 5 times. But at the end of the day, what matters most is whether or not you're proficient at using it in your arsenal. Because if you're not using that mechanic, then it's not really going to help you beat the game any better. There are also upgrades represented by shrines, and much like the moveset unlocks being locked out at a certain age, there are certain upgrades that you can only get by a certain age. It's a unique balancing act in which you have to prioritize what matters most for your run, and it's also a way to encourage you to restart your run once you get more familiar with the game itself. But before I move on from the gameplay, let me just repeat once again because it does need repeating. This game is relentless in difficulty, and you will die. And I repeat, there is no way of lowering the difficulty. Chances are if you're a fan of a Souls game, this is right up your alley. But if you're not ready to quote unquote get good, then you're probably going to want to pass on this game. Next up, let me talk about the visuals and audio, because once again, they're absolutely fantastic. The art style is phenomenal, it provides a really neat backdrop and the environments are beautifully done. And while I only want to show the first boss fight here because I do think the other boss fights are better left experienced on your own, let me just say some of the boss arenas are just absolutely jaw-dropping. The third boss comes into mind in particular. And then there's the sound design, which believe it or not is extremely important in a game like this. Every impact has a nice meaty punching sound to it. It's super satisfying and it makes your punches feel like there's power behind them, much like in the Batman Arkham series. And when you combine that with the killer soundtrack, you're just gonna have a lot of memories of old martial arts movies you've seen in the past. The combat just flows beautifully, and every time you use one of the finisher moves and it's just contextual with your environment, it just looks great. Now before we get to the cons, I do want to just touch a bit on the story. I won't say too much because I'm not a fan of spoilers myself, but to give you a quick example of what you're in for, it's your typical path to revenge plotline. I gotta say the actual voice acting isn't too strong in this game, but it's passable, and while I'm not too interested in the story myself, as that's not why I love this game, I still am watching the cutscenes and paying attention to them. It's actually getting a bit more interesting the further I get into it, but it's nothing to write home about. As you can tell by my impressions so far, I absolutely love this game, but it's not perfect by any means. There are 2 glaring things that come to mind, and first up, it's the camera. In a game like this, it sucks when you die because you have a hard time seeing what's going on. and by no means does it happen often. In fact, I'd say it's a rare occurrence throughout my gameplay so far. But when it does happen and I got punished for it, it felt really bad. In a game where death has so much consequence, dying because of something out of your control just doesn't feel good. And then there's the second con I need to bring up, because this might actually be a deal breaker for some people out there. And that's that the dodging and parrying in this game is nowhere near as smooth or polished as it is in a game like Sekiro. By no means is it bad, but it doesn't feel as refined or as consistent at times. Once you understand that it's not that precise, you'll actually be a bit better off because you'll understand you can actually play around with the timing a bit more, but ultimately it is something that I noticed while playing. I actually debated even bringing this up as a con because I don't think it's really fair to compare an indie game to a AAA title like that, but it is something you should know just so you have your expectations set. So, at the end of the day, is Sifu worth it, and should you play it on GeForce Now? That's a big resounding yes for me. I think it's well worth its asking price, and the gameplay is really satisfying, but I would not recommend it to anyone who doesn't like a difficult game with hard mechanics to master. I do think it sucks a bit because a lot of people are going to be locked out of a game they might have some interest in, but at the end of the day, it is what it is. And if you take it for what it is, well, you'll understand just how fantastically it does its job. It's a game that more than likely will put pressure on you, will frustrate you, but will keep you wanting to come back for more and more. Myself, the first run I did, I beat the first level at age 37, the second time I beat it at 25, and the third time at 23. The first time I got to the third level, I entered it at age 61. This time, I'm entering it at age 42. And that sense of progression I'm getting from each run really is some of the most satisfying in gaming ever. And that's simply because I know I'm getting better at the mechanics of the game itself. And when it comes to playing it on GeForce Now, absolutely don't hesitate. Latency was absolutely not an issue for me, and when it came to the visuals itself, I ran into no bugs or glitches. It just looked beautiful like it does on my local machine. And that's probably the biggest compliment I can give any cloud gaming platform, period. If you have any remaining questions yourself, feel free to leave them down in the comment section below and I'll answer what I can. And if you enjoyed this video or found it helpful at all, be sure to hit that like button as it really does help the channel out. And if you're wanting more content like this, be sure to subscribe and hit that notification bell as well. And before I sign off, I just want to say if you have any feedback for these videos, let me know down in the comment section below. It does matter to me. So much so that I've already implemented some of the feedback in the previous video to make sure this runs at 60 FPS on YouTube. So if you have any other suggestions on things you would want to see when taking a look at a new game, let me know. As always, thank you for watching the video. This has been The Virtual Cloud, giving you the latest and greatest on everything cloud gaming and VR related, and until next time, I'll catch you in the clouds.